everyone, today I'm going to be talking about the 7 sexual personalities. Let's get started. Number 1, the warrior or challenger. They like sex to be a struggle or sport psychologically, and they tend to operate from a hunter and prey mentality, which directly influences their chasing and their bullshit games that they play. Rejection actually turns these people on, which is very freaking poor, and they like to be dominant when it comes to sexual activities. The women are going to be those women who are just driven by material security, while the men are going to be those weak-ass toxic masculinity that just need, I need to be in control. I need for her to be passive. Moving on, the innovator. Sex is based on their changeable mood. Avoid these people at all costs. They don't have fixed practices, and basically they play around with feelings, touch, words, and enjoy that more than they actually do the physicality of sex. The women, they tend to be nurturing in their approach, but they're too easily influenced by the ups and downs that they experience in their life. And the men, they don't like limitations on their sexual conduct. So if you're asking them anything about their behaviors or how they usually perform, they're going to be really annoyed, and they're probably not going to want to be bothered with you. Like I said, avoid these people at all costs. The leader. They're emotionally explosive when it comes to their sexuality, so they're going to be supercharged. They have to be completely satisfied, and so must their partners, which means that they're going to be very experimental too, but it's more so because they're ensuring that their own personal needs are met. Sometimes they do use emotional manipulation to create sexual scenarios so they can have their ideals played out in reality. And this shit is not fair. So if you function that way, fix yourself up. They are more focused on the physicality of sex, and the men like to dominate. So they're gonna look for a submissive female. Not for me. The idealist. They care way too much about the details and miss out on the actual experience because they set standards way too high and deny themselves pleasure. They want women to submit. Unfortunately, the women submit to men and often have such poor experiences that it increasingly makes them want to reject sex. The men want romanticism but also struggle to keep the spiritual aspect intact, which directly relates to their desire to have sexual experience surpass the human experience, but it ain't happening. The organizer. They tend to manipulate people into having sex. Women like grand gestures and foreplay, while the men are chauvinistic, very much like that hunter and prey role. He wants women to use their sexuality instead of their mentality to challenge him. And the male energy tends to stay dark about his preferences as to maintain his sense of control over the experience. Counselor. Number 6. Sex for the counselor tends to happen on a spiritual, healing, emotional, and therapeutic level. They are physically sexy but base their intimate experiences on spirituality, which could be hidden or very evident. It doesn't matter how physically fulfilling the sex is if it does not meet their therapeutic standards. And while engaged in the activity, they enjoy their imagination way more than they do the physicality of the actual experience itself. The men don't like being manipulated into sex and avoid questions about their sexual nature. And the women don't like routine sex and only seek therapeutic results. And finally, number 7, the visionary. They're pretty much set in their sexual moods, wants, and needs, and they enjoy sexual spirituality, and they set up almost in this really weird way for their physicality to become stimulated as to be able to enjoy their sexual needs on a spiritual basis. I know that's kind of a mind fuck, right? The females tend to base sex on moral and values and correctness, while the men approach it from a nurturing manner. So they tend to have deep sensual desires, but they also will withhold themselves from fulfilling them because of that spiritual aspect. I think that there's something wrong with every last sexual personality that I just shared with you all, and the fact that this was taught during African rites of passage is absolute bullshit, because none of this was empowering. none of this was truly insightful to the point where when I was reading about it, it was like, oh, these things could be viewed as strengths. No, I think sexuality is completely corrupt in this day and age. And I hope you found this video useful, but at the same time, useful in the sense that you're realizing your patterns and ways that you can improve your being and your sexuality here, and not being defined by these roles and like feeling empowered by them, because all of that was weak as fuck shit. Blessings and bliss.